Clara's water broke on Italian marble, the pink fluid spreading across the white veining like a Jackson Pollock painting nobody wanted. She gripped the edge of the buffet table, counting heartbeats the way she'd learned in nursing school. 47, 48. Garrett's voice echoed through the ballroom of the Drake Hotel, but the words seemed to float somewhere above her head, tangled in the crystal chandelier with the jazz quartet's rendition of White Christmas. And therefore, Clara and I will be divorcing immediately. 53, 54. The champagne glass in Mrs. Whitmore's hand stopped halfway to her lips. Someone's iPhone camera clicked. Victoria Chen stood near the makeshift stage, her red Versace dress catching the light like fresh blood, thumbs moving across her phone screen even as Garrett spoke. Furthermore, Garrett continued, and Clara could smell the scotch on his breath from 20 feet away, I'm pleased to announce my engagement to Victoria Chen, CEO of Chen Industries. 61. The baby babies, plural. Though only Margaret knew about the twins kicked hard against Clara's ribs. Another rush of fluid, warmer this time. The contractions that had been mild backaches all evening suddenly wrapped around her middle like a vice. Get her out of here, Garrett said to security, not even looking at Clara, stepping deliberately around the puddle of amniotic fluid as he descended from the platform toward Victoria. She's ruining the Persian rug. Clara tried to stand straight, but the contraction peaked, forcing her to her knees. The same marble that had looked so elegant an hour ago felt like broken glass through her stockings. She actually crawled toward the exit while 300 of Chicago's elite watched. The doorman, the same one who'd smiled at her on the way in, turned his back. Outside, the December wind hit like a physical assault. Snow stuck to her eyelashes, melting into the tears she hadn't realized were falling. No coat Garrett had taken her wrap when they'd arrived, said it looked cheap. She made it to the curb before the next contraction hit, dropping her onto the salted sidewalk. Blood now, bright against the snow. A taxi slowed, then sped up when the driver saw her condition. Then another. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers, vision blurring. The screen was cracked when that happened. She managed to dial Margaret before the phone slipped from her numb fingers into a storm drain. Please, she said to no one, to the snow, to the city that had become a stranger. Another contraction. She could feel the baby's head, too low, too soon. This was wrong. 28 weeks was too early. A black town car pulled up. Not a taxi, something else. The door opened, and a man in an expensive suit stepped out. Not Garrett. Older, silver-haired, with the kind of face that had seen boardrooms and battlefields. Ms. Harrison, he said. And Clara's blood froze for a different reason. Nobody had called her by her maiden name in 3 years. My name is James Maxwell. I represent your mother's estate. My mother's dead, Clara managed between panting breaths. Died last year. Hospice nurse. No estate. Maxwell knelt beside her, surprisingly graceful for his age, and draped his wool coat over her shoulders. It smelled like cedar and something else money. Maybe. Real money. Not the desperate kind Garrett chased. The woman who raised you died last year, yes, he said, pulling out a phone, speaking rapidly to someone about an ambulance, Northwestern Memorial, emergency cesarean. But Josephine Harrison, your biological mother, died 3 weeks ago. Clara's vision was going black at the edges. The babies weren't moving anymore. But through the descending darkness, she heard Maxwell's next words clearly. She left you everything, Ms. Harrison. All $10 billion of it. He pressed something into her hand as the ambulance sirens grew closer. Clara looked down through the haze of pain and snow. A key, old-fashioned brass, with a tag attached. She squinted at the faded writing Lincoln Park Storage Unit 447. For Clara, when she needs the truth about why I had to give you up. The EMTs were lifting her now, shouting about blood pressure, fetal distress, possible placental abruption. But Clara clutched that key like it was the only solid thing in a world suddenly made of water. Through the ambulance doors, she saw Maxwell standing in the snow, and behind him. Impossible but unmistakable. A woman who looked exactly like Clara would in 30 years, watching from a building's shadow. Then the doors slammed shut, and Clara heard herself screaming not from pain, but from the terrible certainty that she'd just seen a ghost. The ghost of a woman who'd supposedly died 3 weeks ago. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The operating room lights burned white holes in Clara's vision. Latex fingers pressed on her abdomen while someone counted backwards from 10 in Vietnamese accented English. She knew that accent, Dr. Nguyen, the one who'd delivered the ambassador's wife last month. Placental abruption, Dr. Nguyen said above the surgical mask. We need consent for emergency cesarean. Where is Mr. Sterling? Announcing his engagement. Clara heard herself say. The words tasted metallic, like the blood she could smell despite the antiseptic. To someone else. The anesthesia mask descended. Clara's left hand cramped around the brass key when they let her keep it through the plastic. She glimpsed Margaret rushing in, gray hair escaping her braid, humming that Irish tune she always hummed when her arthritis predicted storms. There now, lamb, Margaret's voice, but distant, underwater. The scalpel's pressure without pain. Clara counted 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. At 27 weeks, the twins' lungs weren't ready. She knew the statistics: brain bleeds, blindness, cerebral palsy. Her nursing training meant she understood exactly how wrong this could go. Crying, weak, kitten-like, first baby out. Boy, someone announced. 2 pounds, 3 ounces. More tugging. Her body rocked on the table. The key's edges cut into her palm. That old scar from childhood splitting open again. The storage unit. Josephine Harrison. $10 billion. None of it made sense. Susan Morrison had raised her, died holding Clara's hand in hospice, leaving nothing but medical debt. Second cry. Stronger. Another boy. 2 pounds, 7 ounces. Through the medication haze, Clara saw the transport isolettes ready, the NICU team in yellow gowns. Standard protocol for extreme preemies. But something felt wrong beyond the medical emergency. That woman in the shadow, the one who looked like Clara aged forward. Maxwell had said Josephine died 3 weeks ago. Their color's off, Dr. Nguyen muttered. Get them upstairs, now! The babies disappeared in a rush of wheels and alarms. Clara's vision swam. Margaret's arthritic fingers squeezed hers, the old woman's knuckles swollen despite the hospital's warmth. That lawyer fellow, Margaret whispered, leaning close enough that Clara smelled peppermint tea and something else fear. He left something besides the key, said to tell you when you woke up proper. Clara tried to speak but tasted copper. Your mother's Susan. I mean, she weren't really a nurse, lamb. She was security, hired to hide you. The monitor screamed, Clara's blood pressure dropping. But before the darkness claimed her again, Margaret pressed something into her hand beside the key. A photograph, Polaroid old, edges yellowed. 2 women holding infant twins. One was Susan Morrison, 30 years younger. The other was the woman from the shadow, definitely alive, definitely watching, holding Clara's babies. The morphine drip clicked every 43 seconds. Clara counted each click, using them as anchors while her abdomen burned beneath the surgical dressing. Room 3847 Northwestern Memorial. Private room. Who was paying for this? Her insurance through Garrett's firm wouldn't cover private. Footsteps in the hallway. Not the nurse's soft-soled shuffling. These were leather on linoleum, deliberate. The door opened without a knock. Marcus Webb, senior partner at Sterling, Lynch and Associates. Clara recognized the cologne Tom Ford Oud Wood, $800 a bottle. Garrett had bought the same one after Webb promoted him. Behind Webb, a younger man carried a briefcase that looked heavier than it should. Mrs. Sterling. Webb's voice scraped like a blade on limestone. Unfortunate timing, but Mr. Sterling requires these documents signed immediately. The younger man, paralegal, judging by the cheap suit trying to look expensive, set the briefcase on the hospital tray table. The latches clicked open. Clara's vision split into doubles from the morphine, but she saw the stack clearly. Legal-sized paper, dense text, yellow tabs marking signature lines. "I need a lawyer," Clara said. Her throat felt stuffed with cotton. "That would delay things." Webb pulled out his phone, swiped. "Mr. Sterling is prepared to file for abandonment. You left the charity gala without notice. 300 witnesses saw you cause a disturbance. My water broke after you'd been drinking." Webb turned the phone toward her. A photo from the gala, Clara holding what looked like champagne. Actually ginger ale, but the camera couldn't capture that. Endangering the twins through substance use. Judge Morrison is standing by for an emergency custody ruling. Clara's incision pulled as she tried to sit up. Fresh blood spotted the bandage. The paralegal placed a Mont Blanc pen beside her hand. Page 1. He flipped the document open. Simple dissolution. Irreconcilable differences. The text swam. Clara blinked hard, focused. Standard language about property division. Custody arrangements, joint custody. That didn't match Webb's threat. She turned the page. More standard language. Page 3, 4, 5. Sign here. The paralegal's finger, nail bitten to the quick, pointed to a yellow tab. Clara's hand wouldn't steady. The pen weighed 50 pounds. She managed CLA before stopping. "The twins," she said. "I need to see them first. They're in NICU." Webb checked his Rolex. "You can't walk yet. Sign now. See them later." Page 12. Her eyes caught on a phrase waives all rights to Harrison family assets. Present and future. Harrison, her maiden name. "What assets?" Clara asked. Standard language. The paralegal flipped quickly to page 18. "Sign here, too." Margaret's footsteps. Clara knew that shuffle, the way her left hip made her favor the right. The door opened. "What's this then?" Margaret's voice carried the steel she'd used running pediatric wards for 30 years. "Private legal matter," Webb said. "Please leave." "I'll not." Margaret moved to Clara's bedside. Her peppermint tea breath warm against Clara's cheek as she leaned to look at the papers. "You're bullying a woman who's lost half her blood volume. I've called security. We represent Mr. Sterling, who isn't this woman's next of kin anymore. Is he not after what he announced tonight?" Margaret's arthritic fingers wrapped around Clara's wrist, feeling for pulse. 140? Too high? You're causing medical distress? Webb's jaw muscle twitched. "Mrs. Sterling, if you don't sign now, Garrett will ensure you never see those boys again. He has resources. You have nothing." Clara's hand moved to sign, but Margaret squeezed her wrist, a warning. The old woman was humming again, that Irish tune, but different now. Stressed notes. "I need to read it," Clara said. 52 pages. Webb laughed, a sound like ice cracking. "Your boys are critical. Every minute you waste here is a minute you're not establishing maternal bonding. Courts consider that." The paralegal flipped to page 31, another signature line. Clara noticed his hands shaking slightly. Scared of Webb. Or something else. Her own hands shook as she signed that page, then 35, 41. Her vision grayed at the edges. 47. The Harrison clause again. Buried in subsection 12. "Why does it mention Harrison assets?" Clara forced the words out. "My mother was a nurse." "Your biological mother," Webb said carefully, "may have had distant relatives. It's precautionary." Margaret's humming stopped. She'd seen something in the papers. Her fingers pressed a rapid pattern on Clara's wrist. Morse code. Clara didn't know Morse code. Page 52. Final signature. Clara's hand cramped around the pen. The incision burned like someone was pulling her apart from inside. Somewhere above, her boys were fighting to breathe. Nathan and Noah, she'd named them in her head during the ambulance ride. She signed. Webb snatched the documents before the ink dried, stuffing them into the briefcase. Smart choice. Mr. Sterling will allow supervised visitation once the boys are stable. They left quickly, leather shoes squeaking on the waxed floor. Clara heard Webb in the hallway, on his phone. It's done. She signed everything. The Harrison inheritance is neutralized. Margaret closed the door, then pulled something from her cardigan pocket. A phone. She'd been recording. That's not legal, Clara whispered. Neither is what they just did. Lamb. Margaret helped Clara lie back. Checked the morphine pump. That lawyer Maxwell left me his card. Said to call if anyone came sniffing around about inheritance. There is no inheritance. My mother was a nurse. Margaret held up the Polaroid from earlier, the two women with twins. Susan Morrison never went to nursing school. I checked the registries after Maxwell left. She appeared in Chicago 30 years ago, right when you were born, with credentials nobody can verify. Clara stared at the photo. The woman who looked like her Josephine stood beside Susan, both holding infants. But something was wrong with the composition. The angle, like someone else had been cropped out. Margaret, in the shadows outside, I saw... The monitors screamed. Not Clara's from the hallway. Code blue. NICU. The automated voice. Rapid response team to NICU. Room 4. Clara knew that room. It was visible from here through 2 sets of windows. She forced herself up, incision screaming, dragging the IV pole. Through her window, across the hall, through the NICU window she could see the isolette. Nathan or Noah. She didn't know which. Tiny chest not moving. Doctors surrounding him. But behind them, reflected in the NICU window's glass, stood a woman. The same woman from outside the hotel. The one who looked like Clara, aged 30 years. She was holding a phone, recording everything, and she was smiling. 3 months. 91 days in NICU. Clara's incision had healed into a pink ridge that pulled when she bent to change Nathan's colostomy bag. The rental apartment in Humboldt Park smelled like formula and medical adhesive. Noah's apnea monitor beeped every time he shifted wrong. The storage unit key sat in her mother's Susan's old jewelry box. Between fake pearls and a Timex watch that stopped working in 1987, Clara touched it every morning after the 5 a.m. feeding, metal cold against her fingertips. Today, while the twins napped, Margaret would watch them. The taxi driver didn't want to stop in Chinatown, not at the address Clara gave. You sure? Lady, that building's been condemned twice. Lincoln Park Storage, despite its name, squatted on Wentworth Avenue between a defunct nail salon and a store with newspapers yellowing in the window. The December wind pushed garbage against the chain-link fence. Clara paid the driver, her last $40 until the disability check came through for Nathan's complications. Unit 447, 4th floor. The elevator didn't work. Cables had been cut. Deliberately from the look of the frayed ends. Clara climbed, each step echoing in the stairwell that reeked of piss and something chemical. Meth, maybe. The 3rd floor landing had fresh blood spatter, still wet. 4th floor? Hallway lit by a single fluorescent tube that flickered like a dying moth. Units 440 through 450 padlocked except one. 447's door stood slightly open. Clara's breast milk let down her body's stress response now. Instead of fight or flight, wet circles spread on her nursing bra. She pushed the door wider. The smell hit first. Dust, yes, but under it Shalimar perfume. Susan's signature scent. The unit was 10 by 10, packed floor to ceiling with banker's boxes. Each box had a date. Clara found 1994, the year she was born. Inside hospital bracelets, but not from Chicago. Montreal General. Twin birth certificates, but the names were wrong. Claire and Christina Beaumont. Mother Josephine Beaumont. Father unknown. A manila envelope taped to the bottom. Clara's fingers shook as she opened it. Photographs spilled out surveillance style, taken with telephoto lenses. A younger Josephine Harrison outside the New York Stock Exchange, getting into a private jet. shaking hands with men Clara recognized from newspaper financial sections. But in every photo, Josephine's face had been circled in red marker, and written beside each circle, "Find her." Next box, 1995. More surveillance photos, but now of Susan Morrison holding baby Clara outside a Chicago grocery store. A lease agreement for an apartment in Rogers Park. Susan Morrison's signature, but the handwriting was different from every birthday card Clara had saved. Medical records. Clara had been hospitalized for 6 weeks at age 2. She didn't remember this. The diagnosis had been blacked out, but she could make out cranial surgery and identity protection protocol. Her fingers found the scar hidden under her hairline. She'd always thought it was from falling off a bike. School enrollment forms, 3 different elementary schools. They'd moved constantly. Clara remembered that. Susan always said it was for better opportunities. But here were court documents, restraining orders, against a man named Victor Beaumont. High school. Clara found her junior year report card, but paperclipped to it was a cashier's check for $2 million. Uncashed. The memo line, "Stop looking or she dies." Or she aval. Clara's knees gave. She sat on the concrete floor, dust puffing around her. A mouse ran across her shoe. She didn't flinch. The newest box. 2024. Last year. Hospital bills from Susan's cancer treatment. All marked paid by J.H. Charitable Trust. Employment records showing Susan never worked at the hospice. She was a patient. Real nurse credentials for a woman named Susan Morrison who died in 1992. A leather journal at the bottom. Susan's actual handwriting, Clara knew it from grocery lists. Permission slips. Day 10, 234. Clara graduated nursing school. Josephine watched from the parking lot. I wanted to tell her everything, but the terms haven't changed. Keep Clara hidden. Keep Clara safe. The money comes monthly. I'm dying anyway. The cancer gives me an exit timeline. Josephine promised she'd reveal herself after I'm gone, but only if it's safe. Victor's people are still watching. They killed Christina in 1997, made it look like Sid's. That's when Josephine faked her first death. Clara's vision blurred. Christina. She'd had a twin sister. More entries. Faster now. Susan's writing deteriorating as the cancer progressed. Josephine built the empire to protect Clara. Every shell company is a shield. Every hidden asset is ammunition. Victor Beaumont wants his daughter back, not for love, but for leverage. He knows Clara is the key to Josephine's fortune. The prenuptial agreement Josephine signed 30 years ago gives him rights to any offspring, but only if he can prove they exist. Clara must never know she's bait. The next page was different paper, different ink. Josephine's writing, "Susan, if you're reading this, I'm already dead, truly dead this time. Not another performance. The 10 billion is Clara's now, but she needs to be ready. Victor will come. He always does. The Harrison name is clean. I killed Josephine Beaumont in 17 different ways across 20 years of paperwork, but he'll recognize her face. God help me. She looks exactly like I did." A Polaroid fell out. Not the one from the hospital, older. Josephine young, pregnant, standing next to a man whose face had been burned out with a cigarette, but his hand on her swollen belly had a distinctive scar. Clara had seen that scar before, where the storage unit door slammed shut. Clara scrambled up, milk leaking, dust in her throat. The padlock clicked from outside. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Clara pulled the door solid metal. No give. Her phone, no signal. The single window, painted shut, looked onto a brick wall 6 inches away. In the distance, she heard Noah's apnea monitor. No. Impossible. The twins were with Margaret, 3 miles away. Unless... The monitor's beeping came from her phone. A video call had somehow connected without her accepting. Her apartment's living room filled the screen. Margaret unconscious on the floor, the twins' bassinets empty. A man's hand reached into frame, adjusting the camera. That distinctive scar across his palm. Victor Beaumont had her boys. The hand held up a note. Building 7, Pier 19. 1 hour. Come alone or they stop breathing. Then the screen went black, except for a timer counting down. 59:47, 59:46, 59:45. The window. Clara grabbed a banker's box, swung it against the painted shut frame. The glass held. Again. Her milk-soaked shirt clung cold against her chest. Again. The box split, papers exploding across the floor. She grabbed another, heavier. Securities documentation from 1998, judging by the weight. The glass cracked, not shattered, cracked. Clara pulled off her boot, hammered the heel against the fracture line. The window exploded outward, 6 inches to the brick wall of the next building. But below a 5-foot gap between buildings, 4 floors down to an alley dumpster, 52:33 on the timer, Clara kicked out the remaining glass teeth. The December wind hit like ice water. She turned sideways, forced her shoulders through the frame. Her cesarean scar stretched, threatened to tear. The brick wall scraped her face as she wiggled through. Halfway out now, suspended 4 stories up, looking down at the dumpster filled with construction debris. Rebar jutted up like spears, a fire escape on the adjacent building. 7 feet to her right, too far to reach from the window. Clara pulled herself back inside, lungs burning. The storage unit's sprinkler system old, probably from the 70s. The pipes ran along the ceiling, thick steel painted industrial green. She dragged a stack of boxes under the pipe, climbed up. The metal was cold, slick with decades of condensation and dust. Hand over hand, she moved toward the window. The pipe groaned. Bolts shed rust flakes into her eyes. At the window, she'd have to swing out, catch the fire escape. Miss, and she'd fall 4 stories onto rebar. 49:17. Clara swung. Her hands released the pipe, body arcing through the December air. Her right hand caught the fire escape's bottom rung. The left missed. She dangled, shoulder socket screaming, feet kicking at nothing. The metal was ice slick. Her grip slipped millimeter by millimeter. She got her left hand up, caught the rung, pulled. Her cesarean scar felt like it was unzipping. Blood spotted her shirt. She'd torn something. Up and over the railing. The fire escape shook with each movement, bolts loosened by decades of Chicago winters. Down. 3rd floor landing rusted through. A hole big enough to fall through. She edged around it. 2nd floor. 1st. The ladder to the alley had been removed, hacksawed off. Clara hung from the platform, dropped. Her ankles compressed wrong, sent lightning up her shins. But nothing broke. 47:41. No money for a taxi. Pier 19 was 3 miles. She ran. Down Wentworth, past the dim-sum restaurants with ducks hanging in windows. Her breast milk leaked with each stride, leaving a trail. At Cermak, she turned east, the skyline ahead. Willis Tower piercing low clouds. A CTA bus approached. Clara had no fare card. She stepped in front of it. Brakes screamed. The driver laid on the horn. Clara didn't move. He opened the door to curse her out. "My babies are dying," Clara said. Not a lie. "Pier 19, please." Something in her face, blood from the window glass. Maybe. Or the milk stains. Or the way she counted heartbeats aloud made him wave her on. The bus crawled through traffic. Michigan Avenue was gridlocked. Some protest about the mayor's new budget. Clara watched the timer. 41:22. At Roosevelt. She got off. Ran again. The lake wind hit like broken glass. Her cesarean incision had definitely torn. Warm blood trickled down her thigh. Lakeshore Drive roared beside her, salt spray from car tires burning her scraped face. Navy Pier stretched ahead, touristy even in December. But Pier 19 was industrial, further south, past the locks, past the water treatment plant. Her legs went numb. She counted steps instead of heartbeats. 1,000, 2,000. Pier 19, a warehouse from the 20s, corrugated steel patched with rust. Building 7 had no windows, just a rolling door tall enough for semis. A small side entrance stood open. 2816. Clara entered. The space was vast, empty except for support pillars every 30 feet. Fluorescent lights hummed, half of them dead, creating pools of shadow. The concrete floor had been painted once, maybe green, now worn to abstract patterns. In the center, under the only cluster of working lights, 2 bassinets. Clara ran. Her boys lay still, too still, but breathing. Nathan's colostomy bag needed changing. Noah's monitor wasn't connected, the leads dangling. They'd been drugged, judging by their sluggish breathing, but alive. Punctual. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Speakers in the ceiling. Clara spun, counting exits. Just the one she'd entered through, now closed, the loading dock. But the controls were probably locked. "You look like her." The voice had an accent French-Canadian, worn down by decades in America. "Exactly like Josephine at 32. Footsteps from the shadows. Victor Beaumont emerged between pillars, and Clara's breath stopped. She did know that scar. From every medical journal article about pharmaceutical fraud, from the documentary about the Quebec orphans who'd been experimented on in the 60s, from wanted posters that used to hang in post offices before he'd supposedly died in a yacht explosion in 2002. Victor Beaumont, the pharmacist, they'd called him, though he'd never been to pharmacy school, built an empire on fake cancer drugs, diluted chemotherapy, sugar pills sold as insulin, killed thousands, made billions, disappeared. Her father. "The twins are leverage," he said, stepping into the light. 70-something, but moved like a boxer. Gray suit that probably cost more than Clara's yearly rent. "Josephine hid you well. Susan Morrison did excellent work, but facial recognition software has improved dramatically." He pulled out a tablet, showed Clara the screen. Security footage from Northwestern Memorial's lobby, the night she gave birth, her face, circled in green. Match probability 97.3% to Josephine Beaumont, née Harrison, circa 1994. "I've been looking for 30 years, Victor continued. "Your mother was clever, faked her death multiple times, actually, but she made one mistake. She let you become a nurse. Same hospital where she'd given birth to you and Christina. The algorithm flagged it immediately." Clara's hands moved to the bassinets, checking the twins' pulses, slow but steady. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. What I'm owed." Victor pulled out a document, thick as a phone book. "Your mother signed a prenuptial agreement in 1993. Any assets acquired during marriage are joint property. Any children born of the marriage are under patriarchal authority until age 40. You're 32. He set the document on Nathan's bassinet. Clara saw Josephine's signature. Notarized, witnessed, legal. "For 8 more years, I control you, which means I control the inheritance. $10 billion. Clara, did Maxwell tell you the full amount? Not just liquid assets, shell companies, real estate in 17 countries, art collections, gold reserves. Your mother spent 30 years building an empire to keep it from me, but she couldn't change Quebec law from 1993. Quebec law doesn't apply in Illinois. You were born in Montreal." Victor smiled. His teeth were too white. "Veneers. Twin daughters. Christina died tragic. Josephine ran with you. But birth location determines applicable law for prenuptial contracts. I've had 30 years to research this." Clara felt blood running down her leg, pooling in her boot. The torn incision was getting worse. "The twins. They're American citizens. You can't. I don't want them. They're mongrels. That Sterling boy's genetics are worthless. I looked into his family. Coal miners and prostitutes." Victor stepped closer. Clara smelled his cologne. Tom Ford. Same as Webb wore. "But you'll sign over the inheritance to protect them. Maternal instinct." Josephine had the same weakness. Another footstep from the shadows. Clara turned. Josephine Harrison walked into the light, not a look-alike, Not a daughter who resembled her mother, Josephine herself, supposedly 3 weeks dead, wearing a Chanel suit and the kind of exhaustion that comes from running for 3 decades. "Hello, Clara," her mother said. "I'm sorry about the deception, but dying was the only way to trigger the inheritance transfer. Victor can't claim assets from a dead woman's estate, only from a living spouse." Clara's vision split. The blood loss, the shock, the impossibility of her dead mother standing there. She gripped Nathan's bassinet. "You're alive." For now. Josephine pulled out a gun, not dramatically like she was pulling out a phone. "Victor, you have 2 choices. Leave now, forfeit all claims, and I won't release the files I have on your current operations. Or stay, and we settle this the way we should have in 1994. Victor laughed. "You won't shoot me in front of our daughter." "Our daughter has seen worse." Josephine's hand was steady. "She watched the woman who raised her die of cancer you caused. Your fake tamoxifen killed Susan Morrison." Clara's knees buckled. The blood loss was winning. But through the graying vision, she saw a movement behind Victor. Someone else in the shadows. "Mom," Clara said, not sure which mother she was addressing. "There's someone—" The gunshot was impossibly loud in the warehouse, but Josephine hadn't fired. She fell forward, blood spreading across the Chanel suit. Behind her stood Victoria Chen, Garrett's fiancée, holding a Glock with practiced ease. "Mr. Beaumont," Victoria said. "As discussed, the mother's dead, the daughter signs over the inheritance, or the baby stopped breathing permanently." She wasn't looking at Clara. She was looking past her. Clara turned. Garrett Sterling stood behind her, holding a pre-filled syringe to Noah's neck. "Hey, babe," her ex-husband said. "Let's talk about that $10 billion. Blood spread beneath Josephine's body like spilled wine on concrete. The entry wound was center mass. Victoria had trained for this. Clara pressed her palms against the cold floor to stand, felt her own blood sticky between her fingers from the torn incision. "Don't move." Garrett's thumb rested on the syringe plunger. The needle dimpled Noah's neck skin. "Potassium chloride. Stops the heart in 30 seconds. I had to steal it from the hospital. But then you always said I was resourceful." The warehouse lights hummed. One flickered, casting Garrett's face in and out of shadow. He'd lost weight since the gala. His wedding ring hung loose. No, not wedding ring. Different band. Platinum with a single black diamond. Victoria wore a matching one. "You were together before," Clara said. Her voice came out steady despite the blood loss making her fingers numb. "Before you even met me." Victoria stepped over Josephine's body, gun still raised. 3 years before, Garrett needed a nurse wife for his image at the firm. Traditional values. You were convenient, young, desperate for stability after your mother's death. She checked her phone with her free hand. Well, Susan's death. Josephine's fingers twitched. Still alive. Her blood had reached Clara's knee now, warm through the torn jeans. Victor hadn't moved from his position 20 feet away, hands in his pockets like he was watching a board meeting. "Miss Chen, you're early. We agreed on midnight." Plans changed when Clara escaped the storage unit. Victoria's phone buzzed. She frowned at the screen. "The FBI raided Chen Industries an hour ago. Someone sent them files about my SEC violations. Everything's frozen." "Josephine," Victor said. "Even dying. She had contingencies." Clara's medical training kicked in. The blood pooling under Josephine was too much. She'd bleed out in minutes without pressure on the wound. But moving toward her meant moving away from the twins. "The inheritance documents." Garrett shifted the syringe slightly. Noah whimpered in his sleep, fighting the sedative. "Maxwell brought them. Right after I left the hospital." Clara's vision pulsed with her heartbeat. The blood loss was accelerating. "There are no documents here." "Don't lie." Garrett's voice cracked the same tell he'd had during poker games. "Victor tracked Maxwell's car. He came here an hour before you." Movement in Clara's peripheral vision. Josephine's hand, sliding through her own blood, reaching for something under her suit jacket. "I'll sign," Clara said, louder, drawing attention. "Whatever you want. Just let me stop her bleeding first. I'm a nurse." "You were a nurse," Victoria laughed, sharp as breaking glass. "Now you're worth $10 billion. Or you will be, once the transfer completes." "It won't complete," Josephine whispered. Blood bubbled on her lips. "I built in a dead man's switch. If I don't enter a code every 12 hours, everything liquidates. Donated to charity. Irrevocable." Victor's composure cracked. He crossed the warehouse in quick strides, knelt beside Josephine. "The code dies with me." Josephine coughed. Blood spattered Victor's gray suit. Unless what?" Victoria pressed the Glock to Josephine's temple. "Unless Clara agrees to my terms, not yours." Clara watched her biological mother's chest rise and fall, each breath shallower. The medical facts lined up in her mind: blood pressure dropping, possible tension pneumothorax, maybe 8 minutes before complete cardiovascular collapse. "What terms?" Clara asked. Josephine's eyes, the same brown as Clara's, fixed on her daughter. "The twins inherit everything. Not you, not Victor, not Garrett. Trust fund. Irrevocable. Until they're 25. No." Garrett's hand shook. The needle scraped Noah's skin, drawing a bead of blood. "That's not happening. I need that money now. Sterling Industries is gone. I'm facing fraud charges. Prison. Should have thought of that before you embezzled." Maxwell's voice echoed from the loading dock. Everyone turned. The estate lawyer stood in the doorway, but he wasn't alone. FBI agents in tactical gear spread out, weapons drawn. Red laser dots appeared on Victoria's chest, Garrett's forehead. "Nobody move." The lead agent, a black woman with sergeant stripes, spoke through a megaphone despite being only 50 feet away. "Weapons down. Step away from the children." Victoria swung the Glock toward Clara. "I'll kill her. The inheritance dies with her." "No," Josephine gasped. "It transfers to the twins, already executed. Clara was just the trustee." Clara understood now. The Harrison clause in the divorce papers: Garrett had signed away rights to the twins' inheritance, not Clara's. He'd screwed himself months ago. "You're lying," Victor said, but uncertainty colored his voice. Maxwell held up a tablet, showing a document. "Executed 3 weeks ago, when Mrs. Harrison died. The death triggered an immediate transfer to a generation-skipping trust. Clara has no money. She never did. She's just the guardian of the beneficiaries." Garrett's face went gray. The syringe shook worse. "That's not possible." Webb said, "Webb's been arrested." Maxwell scrolled his tablet. "Conspiracy to commit fraud. He's already talking. Says you promised him $200 million to falsify custody documents." The FBI agents moved closer. Clara counted 8 of them. No, 12. More outside, visible through the door. "Everyone calm down." Victor pulled out his own gun, small, pearl-handled, probably custom. He pressed it to Josephine's head. "We're walking out of here with the twins. Clara signs over trustee rights, or I finish what Ms. Chen started." "She's dying anyway," Victoria said. "Look at the blood pool. Another 5 minutes maximum." Clara's medical eye confirmed it. Josephine's skin had gone gray, lips blue-tinged, classic exsanguination. But her mother's hand was still moving, had found what she was looking for under her jacket. Another gun, smaller than Victor's. "Clara," Josephine whispered. "The storage unit. You found Christina's file." "Yes," Clara said. "She didn't die of SIDS. Victor injected her. I watched. Couldn't stop him. That's when I ran." Victor's face didn't change. "Prove it." "I recorded it." Josephine's voice was fading. "Audio. In the unit. File 1997, March." Clara remembered that box. She'd seen it but hadn't opened it, too focused on the recent years. "You're lying." But Victor's gun hand trembled slightly. Statute of limitations, Victoria began. Not for murder, the FBI sergeant said. Never for murdering a baby. Garrett made a sound like a wounded animal. The syringe moved away from Noah's neck slightly. You killed a baby. Business, Victor said. Josephine was going to leave me. Take the twins. I needed leverage. You killed our daughter for leverage. Garrett's voice pitched higher. She was 3 months old. You're threatening to kill your own son for money, Clara pointed out. Garrett looked down at Noah as if seeing him for the first time. The baby's eyes had opened, still druggy but aware. Brown eyes. Clara's eyes. Garrett's hand started shaking worse. I can't, he whispered. Vic, I can't do it. He looks like... Do it, Victoria snapped. Or we both go to prison. Prison's better than this? Garrett set the syringe down, stepped back from the bassinet. I'm done. I'm out. Victoria swung the Glock toward him. You fucking coward! Josephine's hidden gun fired. The small caliber bullet caught Victoria in the shoulder, spinning her around. Her Glock flew into the shadows. Victor shot Josephine point blank. The FBI opened fire. Clara threw herself over the bassinets as the warehouse exploded in gunfire. Bullets sparked off concrete, shattered the remaining lights. Someone screamed male voice. Maybe Garrett. Glass rained from the skylights. Then silence except for ringing ears. Clara looked up. Victor lay 10 feet away, chest rising and falling but blood pooling beneath him. Victoria was on her face, zip-tied, an agent's knee in her back. Garrett sat against a pillar, hands on his head, sobbing. But Josephine Clara crawled to her mother. 2 wounds now, the second through her throat. No heartbeat, no breath. Dead. Her mother's hand still gripped Clara's wrist. Dying message. Clara looked down. Written in blood on the concrete. Unit 447, Box 1994. Under my body. Clara didn't understand. Under Josephine's body, she was dying here. Not Maxwell appeared beside her, already calling for medics. There's something else. Clara. Something Josephine didn't want them to find. He knelt, gently rolled Josephine's body, taped to her back, sealed in plastic a DNA test. Clara Harrison, 0% biological relation to Josephine Harrison. 97% biological relation to Margaret Sullivan. Clara's vision went black. The last thing she heard was Nathan crying, not the weak, premature baby cry from 3 months ago, but strong, angry, alive. And Margaret's voice, impossible but unmistakable, saying, "It's time you knew the truth, lamb, all of it." The hospital ceiling had water stains shaped like a map of Michigan. Clara knew because she'd been staring at them for 3 hours while the cardiac surgeon explained Nathan's condition. Hypoplastic left heart syndrome, underdeveloped left ventricle, discovered during a routine check when he'd turned blue during feeding. Should have been caught in utero, Dr. Patel said, tablet in hand, swiping through echocardiogram images. But given the premature delivery circumstances, Clara's surgical incision, the one that had torn during the warehouse confrontation 6 months ago, pulled as she shifted in the chair. They'd had to reoperate, remove infected tissue. The new scar was wider, angrier. Margaret sat beside her, knitting, the click of needles steady as a metronome. Since the revelation at the warehouse that Margaret was her biological mother, that everything else had been an elaborate protection scheme, they'd existed in careful orbit around each other, not discussing it, just being. The Norwood procedure, Dr. Patel continued. 3 stages. First within days, second at 4 to 6 months, third at 18 months to 3 years. Survival rate for all 3 stages. 60 to 70% weighty, Clara finished. She'd already researched it, spent nights reading medical journals while the twins slept. Noah in his crib, Nathan hooked to monitors. The first surgery alone is $800,000. Your insurance. There is no insurance. Clara's voice came out flat. Garrett had removed her from his policy after the divorce. The twins were supposed to be covered, but premature birth complications, now pre-existing conditions, the trust fund, Margaret said, needles never stopping. The 10 billion. Locked until they're 25. Maxwell had explained it 17 times. Josephine, or whoever had actually orchestrated this, since Josephine wasn't Clara's mother, had made it ironclad. I can't touch it. Not even for medical expenses. Dr. Patel's phone buzzed. He frowned at the screen. I need to take this. The surgical scheduler will discuss payment plans. He left. The room smelled like antiseptic and Margaret's peppermint tea, which she wasn't drinking, just holding. Tell me, Clara said. Margaret's needles stopped. First time in 6 months. What do you want to know? Everything. Margaret set down the knitting, a tiny sweater, Nathan-sized. Her arthritic fingers trembled slightly. I was 17, working in a Montreal textile factory. Victor Beaumont was 25, already running pharmaceutical scams. He took an interest. The words were careful, measured. Clara understood what wasn't being said. I got pregnant. He was married his first wife, before Josephine. When I told him, he had his men hold me down, tried to inject me with something to cause miscarriage. But Josephine, she was his secretary then. Planning her own escape, she switched the vials. Saline instead of prostaglandin. Through the window, Clara could see Nathan in the NICU. The blue tinge around his lips had worsened since morning. Josephine helped me run, set me up with a new identity, Susan Morrison. She was pregnant too, with the real Clara and Christina. We made a deal. I'd raise you as Susan Morrison's daughter. She'd raise the real Clara as Josephine Harrison's. If Victor came looking, he'd find the wrong children. But Christina died. The real Christina, yes, Victor found them first, killed the baby to punish Josephine. That's when she took the real Clara and disappeared completely. I kept you. Kept the Susan Morrison identity. The woman you buried last year that was an actress. Josephine paid her to play Susan dying. To complete the illusion. Clara's hands went numb. So Josephine is alive? No, she died in that warehouse. Really died. But the real Clara... Margaret pulled out her phone, showed a photo. A woman who looked nothing like Clara. Blonde, tall, narrow face. She's been living in Switzerland as Claire Beaumont. Safe, anonymous. She inherited the 10 billion. But she signed it over to your twins immediately. She wanted no part of blood money. Why? Clara's voice cracked. Why all of this? Because Victor would never stop hunting Josephine's actual daughter. But you were nobody. Margaret Sullivan's bastard. Beneath his notice. Until you became useful. Through the window, monitors around Nathan started alarming. His oxygen saturation dropping. Nurses rushed in. I need to... Clara stood too fast, vision graying. They won't let you in during intervention. Margaret caught her arm. I know. I watched you through glass for 3 months in Montreal before Josephine took you. Could hold you exactly once. Dr. Patel ran past, toward Nathan's room. More alarms. The crash cart rolled by. Clara pressed against the glass. Nathan's chest wasn't moving right. The nurses were bagging him, forcing oxygen. His skin had gone dusty blue. We need to intubate, someone said. The surgical scheduler appeared beside Clara, tablet in hand. Ms. Harrison, about the payment. I'll pay. Clara turned. Garrett stood in the doorway, unrecognizable. He'd lost maybe 40 pounds. His suit, clearly from Goodwill, hung loose. Track marks visible on his forearms where the sleeves were too short. The Rolex was gone. The wedding ring gone. Even his shoes were wrong sneakers. One sole separating from the upper. I said I'll pay. His voice was different, rough, like he'd been screaming or smoking. I've been working. Saved 8,000. It's a start. Sir, the surgery is 800,000. I know what it costs. Garrett pulled out an envelope, hands shaking, not drugs. Clara realized. Exhaustion. Hunger. $8,217, cash. I've been working 3 jobs, warehouse, McDonald's, night cleaning, sleeping in my car when I had a car. It got repossessed last month. He looked at Clara for the first time in 6 months. His eyes were bloodshot but clear, sober. I know it's not enough, but I'll work forever if I have to. Sell a kidney. Whatever. Just, please, let them fix him. Through the glass. They'd gotten Nathan intubated. His chest rose and fell mechanically. Dr. Patel was reading charts, barking orders. You have no rights here, Clara said. You signed them away. I know. You held a syringe to his neck. I know. You chose Victoria and money over your children. I know. Garrett's legs gave out. He sat on the floor, still holding the envelope. I know what I did. I think about it every second. When I'm loading trucks and my back screams, when I'm cleaning toilets at the bus station, when I wake up in the shelter because it's too cold to sleep outside. I know. The scheduler looked uncomfortable. I'll give you a moment. She left. Margaret's knitting needles resumed. Click, click, click. Victoria's in federal prison, Garrett continued, talking to the floor. 25 to life for attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. She made a deal. Testified against Victor. He got life without parole for Christina's murder. They found the recording Josephine mentioned. The storage unit had audio of him killing his own baby. Nathan's monitors were stabilizing. Heart rate still wrong, but sustainable. I testified too, Garrett said. About Webb, about the papers, about everything. I'm going to prison too, just minimum security. 5 years. I'm supposed to report next month. He finally looked up at Clara. I know you hate me. You should. But I'm still their father, and I'll do whatever it takes. No! Clara's voice was ice. Garrett flinched. You're not their father. You're genetic material. A father doesn't abandon his children, doesn't choose money over their lives, doesn't, her voice broke, doesn't step over their mother's amniotic fluid to kiss another woman. Clara, don't. She turned back to the glass. Nathan was stable but gray. Your money's no good here, even if you had enough. Then I'll find another way. Garrett stood, legs shaking. I'll find investors. Take loans. Rob a bank if I have to. You'll go to prison, Margaret said calmly. As scheduled. You'll serve your time. And when you get out, if you've truly changed, we'll discuss supervised visitation. He could be dead by then. Margaret's needles stopped again. She looked at Garrett with eyes Clara now recognized same green as her own, just aged and tired. Yes, Margaret said. He could. That's what consequences look like. Mr. Sterling? Garrett made a sound like breaking. He set the envelope on the chair and left. Footsteps echoing down the hall. Clara heard him vomit in the bathroom. Then the exit door slam. Dr. Patel emerged from Nathan's room, pulling off bloody gloves. Clara's stomach dropped. He's stable, the doctor said quickly. But we need to operate within 48 hours. Without it. He didn't finish. Clara knew. Without it, Nathan would die. Days, maybe a week. The payment bun will be arranged, Maxwell said. Clara turned. The lawyer stood in the doorway, but he wasn't alone. A woman was with him. Blonde, tall, narrow face. The real Clara. Claire Beaumont. Hello, Claire said in accented English-Swiss-German. Maybe. I understand my nephew needs surgery. She pulled out a checkbook, not a regular one, Swiss bank, private wealth management. I can't access the trust, Clara said. You signed it over. I signed over the legitimate inheritance. Claire wrote as she spoke. But Josephine had other accounts. Ones Victor didn't know about. Ones that were actually mine, not hers. About $50 million that was never part of the trust. She tore off the check. $1 million. For Nathan. And whatever else you need. Clara stared at the check, then at this stranger who should have been her, whose life she'd lived as a decoy. Why? Claire smiled sadly. Because Victor Beaumont destroyed enough children. I won't let him destroy any more. Even from prison. She handed Clara the check, then walked to the glass, looking at Nathan. He looks like Christina, she said. The real Christina. I have photos. From before. She pulled out a worn Polaroid. A baby. 3 months old. Sleeping. The same nose. The same chin. Genetics are strange, Claire said. Your son looks more like my dead sister than either of his parents. She turned to leave, then stopped. There's something else. Something Josephine never told anyone. About the trust, the 10 billion. She built a provision even she didn't know about. The AI she used for estate planning. It learned from her patterns. It created something. What? If Nathan dies before his surgery, if either twin dies before age 5, the entire trust liquidates immediately. But not to charity. Claire met Clara's eyes. To Victor Beaumont. He's their biological grandfather. After all, Garrett signed away his rights. But Victor never signed anything. The AI interpreted that as an oversight, created what it thought Josephine would want: ultimate leverage. Clara's blood turned ice. Victor ordered the hit from prison. The surgery. He doesn't want Nathan to survive it. He's already arranged for someone inside the hospital during Nathan's operation. Make it look like complications. Claire pulled out a phone, showed Clara a text exchange. Prison contraband phone. Victor's orders. Tomorrow night. During the surgery. How do you know this? Claire smiled. Cold as Winter Lake. Because I'm the one he hired. He doesn't know who I really am. Thinks I'm just a Swiss assassin who needs money. She pocketed the phone. The question is, what do we do about it? Clara's milk let down involuntarily. Her body's stress response hadn't changed in the year since the twins' birth. The wet spots spread on her scrub top while Claire stood there, waiting for an answer about murdering Nathan during surgery. You're asking if I want you to kill my son. Clara's voice came out steady, despite the roaring in her ears. No. Claire pulled latex gloves from her pocket, medical grade. I'm asking if you want to catch whoever Victor sends when I don't show up. The hospital corridor fluorescence flickered. Third shift had started fewer staff, easier to slip through. Clara knew every shadow in this ward after 6 months of sleeping in waiting room chairs. Maxwell. Clara turned to the lawyer. That storage unit. There's something else there. Isn't there something Josephine left? Maxwell's face stayed neutral, but his fingers drummed against his briefcase. Tell. Unit 447 was cleared by FBI. Evidence for Victor's trial. Not everything. Margaret's knitting needles hadn't stopped. Josephine was too smart for that. She'd have backups. Claire checked her phone. Victor expects confirmation by midnight that I'm in position. 3 hours. Through the glass. Nathan's ventilator wheezed. His skin had gone from blue-gray to yellow-gray. Liver struggling now, too. I need to go back to the storage unit, Clara said. It's sealed, Maxwell began. You have federal clearance. Your firm is handling the estate. Clara was already moving toward the elevator. Margaret, stay with the twins. Like hell, lamb. Margaret packed her knitting. I've been running from Victor Beaumont since before you were born. I'm done running. The taxi ride to Chinatown took 17 minutes. Clara counted them. The storage facility looked worse at night, half the streetlights broken, shadows moving that could be homeless people or worse. The crime scene tape across the entrance had been cut, probably by squatters. Maxwell produced a key and federal documentation. The security guard, different from 6 months ago, barely looked up from his phone. 4th floor. The elevator had been fixed but made grinding sounds that suggested temporary repairs. Unit 447's door stood open. Lock cut by FBI. Inside. Boxes remained but reorganized, labeled with evidence tags. The bloodstains on the floor from where Clara had cut herself escaping were now brown, painted over with forensic markers. What are we looking for? Claire asked. Clara went to box 1994, where Josephine had hidden the first truth. She pulled out the false bottom Margaret had mentioned. Nothing. Checked 1995, 1996. Nothing. The year I was actually born, Margaret said suddenly. Not 1994. That was the fake birth date. Try 1976. No box for 1976. But there was 1977. Inside, under tax documents, a VHS tape. Handwritten label. For Clara. The real one. But if you're watching this, you need it too. There's no VHS player. Maxwell started. Claire pulled out her phone, opened an app. Swiss efficiency. I digitized everything important years ago. She held up a USB drive, including this tape. Josephine sent it to me in 2015, told me only to watch if something happened to her. She plugged the drive into her phone, turned the screen toward them. Josephine appeared, but younger, maybe 40, sitting in what looked like a hotel room, bruise on her cheekbone, partially covered with makeup. Clara, the recording said. I don't know which Clara will see this. My biological daughter, safe in Switzerland, or Margaret's daughter, living my life as bait. Either way, you need to know the truth. The Josephine on screen pulled out documents. Victor Beaumont isn't just a pharmaceutical fraudster. He's part of something bigger, a network that goes back to the Quebec orphan experiments, Duplessis, the CIA connections, MK Ultra derivatives. He wasn't selling fake cancer drugs for money, he was collecting data. Who would pay for false hope? How much? How long they'd keep buying even when dying? Papers rustled on the recording. I found out when I was his secretary. Pregnant with twins. He was building a database of desperate people. Terminal patients who'd pay anything. Parents with dying children. The fake drugs were just phase 1. Phase 2 was going to be worse. Targeted biological weapons. Selling both the disease and the cure to the highest bidder. Young Josephine looked directly at the camera. I ran with the twins. He found us. Killed Christina to prove he could. So I did the only thing I could. I disappeared completely. Became the ghost. Built my empire not for money, but for protection. Every shell company was a shield. Every hidden account was ammunition. The bruise on her cheek seemed darker as she shifted. But I was dying. Pancreatic cancer, ironic. Considering I needed someone to inherit who Victor couldn't touch. Margaret's daughter was perfect. Wrong genetics for him to claim, but right appearance to draw him out. The recording paused, frozen on Josephine's exhausted face. There's more, Claire said. Should I? A text buzzed on Clara's phone. From Garrett? Josephine visited me in jail today. Clara's blood froze. Josephine's dead. Another text. A photo, Garrett in an orange jumpsuit, sitting across from someone in a visitor's booth. The visitor's face was obscured, but the hand visible on the table had a distinctive scar. Surgical scar from a recent gunshot wound. Margaret grabbed Clara's phone. That's impossible. She died in that warehouse. We saw the body. No, Claire said quietly. You saw a body. Victor shot someone. But Josephine was always 3 steps ahead. She swiped to continue the video. Josephine spoke again. If you're watching this, it means Plan A failed. I'm either dead or presumed dead. Again. But Plan B is already in motion. The video showed Josephine holding up a medical chart. The twins will inherit everything. But there's a problem. The AI system I used for estate planning learned too much. It created provisions I didn't authorize. If either twin dies before age 5, Victor inherits. The AI thought it was protecting the bloodline. It didn't understand I was protecting them from the bloodline. Young Josephine pulled out a vial. This is the antidote, not to a poison, to the genetic marker Victor planted in all his descendants. He's been dosing himself with a triggered virus for 40 years, building immunity. But his children and grandchildren carry the susceptibility. He can activate it remotely. Kill any of us within 72 hours. Clara's legs gave out. She sat on a box. Nathan's heart condition? Isn't natural, Claire confirmed. Victor triggered it when he learned about the twins. The heart problems are just the first stage. Without the antidote, Nathan has maybe 48 hours. Where's the antidote? Clara's voice cracked. Claire smiled grimly. That's what Josephine is telling Garrett right now, in federal prison, through bulletproof glass. Maxwell's phone rang. He answered, face going pale. There's been an incident at the federal detention center. Visitor had a medical emergency. They're rushing them to... He paused, listening. Northwestern Memorial, same hospital as the twins. Clara was already moving, down the stairs, not waiting for the elevator. Her milk-stained scrubs flapped as she ran. Margaret behind her, gasping but keeping up. Claire's longer legs overtook them both. Outside, no taxis. Clara started running toward the hospital. 8 blocks. Her phone rang. Garrett. She gave me something, he said, voice hollow through the prison phone. Before she collapsed, pressed it through the ventilation slots. A medical vial. Guards didn't see. Where is it now? I swallowed it. Only way to hide it. Clara, she said Nathan will die without it. Said I have to get to the hospital. You're in federal custody. She had a heart attack, or made it look like one. When the guards rushed to help her, she whispered something to the warden. He's bringing me to the hospital. Compassionate visit to see my dying son. We're in the transport van now. Clara could hear sirens through the phone, getting closer. Garrett, whoever that woman is, she's not... The line cut. Clara reached Roosevelt, turned toward the hospital. The emergency entrance glowed ahead. Ambulances lined up. One was unloading a gurney elderly woman. Oxygen mask, gray hair. But as they wheeled her past, the woman's eyes opened, looked directly at Clara. Josephine, alive, smiling, and behind the ambulance, a federal transport van pulled up. Guards emerged, then Garrett in shackles. He saw Clara, tried to call out, but vomited instead. Blood and bile and something else. The vial. Coming back up. A guard stepped on it accidentally, crushing it under his boot. The antidote, the only dose, spreading across the ambulance bay asphalt, mixing with motor oil and snow. Clara looked at her phone. 11:47 p.m. Nathan had 13 minutes left, and the cure was destroyed. Unless Josephine had lied about there being only one dose. Clara turned to Claire. You said you're a biochemist. In Switzerland. Claire nodded. Can you synthesize an antidote from residue? Maybe. If I had a sample of the original compound, and a lab, and 12 hours. Through the emergency doors, Clara could see Nathan's room. The monitors were alarming again. His heart rate dropping. Then flatline. The crash cart slammed through the NICU doors. Clara's body moved without thought 20 feet from the ambulance bay to Nathan's room. Her milk-soaked scrub stuck to her ribs as she ran. The flatline tone pierced every other sound. Dr. Patel was already there, hands on Nathan's tiny chest, compressions that seemed too violent for a body that small. 1 milligram epi, he barked. The nurse, Clara, knew her. Jennifer. 3 kids of her own pushed the drug through Nathan's IV. Her hands shook. How long? Clara heard herself ask. 90 seconds down. Dr. Patel didn't look up. 2 fingers compressing. Nathan's ribs bending visibly with each push. Margaret appeared beside Clara. Pulled her back. Let them work. Lamb. Through the glass door, Clara saw Garrett in the hallway, Federal guards flanking him, vomit still on his orange jumpsuit. His face was the color of old paper. Behind him, Josephine on a gurney, supposedly dying but eyes tracking everything. 2 minutes, Jennifer announced. No response. Nathan's skin had gone from gray to white, his lips blue-black. Clara's knees hit the floor. Not a collapse, she was crawling toward the spilled antidote in the ambulance bay. Maybe some survived. Maybe Claire's voice, sharp. The compound structure. She was kneeling by the spill, using her phone's flashlight. The liquid had crystallized in the December cold, forming patterns on the asphalt. "I've seen this before," Claire said. "This crystallization pattern, it's not custom. It's a modified version of something commercial." She took photos, fingers flying across her phone. "The Swiss lab I work for. We developed this 6 years ago. Metabolic stabilizer for premature infants with cardiac issues." 3 minutes. From inside, Dr. Patel was sweating despite the cold. "You have it." Clara grabbed Claire's arm. "Not here, but..." Claire looked at Margaret. "Insulin?" "What?" "The compound bonds with insulin, makes it last longer in preemie bloodstreams. If Nathan's been getting insulin, he hasn't. His blood sugar's been normal." "No." Margaret was moving toward the room. "But Susan had diabetes. The real Susan Morrison, the nurse who died in '92. Josephine took her medical supplies when she stole the identity." Clara remembered the storage unit, box after box. At the bottom of 1993. There were vials, old insulin vials. "I thought they were expired medication." "Get them," Claire said. "Now." Clara looked at the crash team through the glass. Dr. Patel had stopped compressions, was charging the pediatric defibrillator paddles. 4 minutes, Jennifer whispered. The federal guards wouldn't let her leave, but Garrett Clara met his eyes through the glass. She mouthed, "Storage unit, 1993 box, insulin vials." Garrett turned to his guards. Said something Clara couldn't hear. One guard laughed. Then Garrett dropped full collapse, convulsing on the linoleum. Not fake. Real seizure. Foam at his mouth. Induced somehow. Both guards went to him. In the chaos, nobody noticed Maxwell slip away toward the exit. "Charging to 50 joules, Dr. Patel said. The paddles on Nathan's chest looked obscene, too big for his tiny torso. "Clear." Nathan's body jumped. "Nothing." "Resume compressions." 5 minutes. Brain damage started at 4 minutes without oxygen. Every second now was killing neurons, stealing futures. Clara's milk had dried to a crust on her shirt. She counted 17 compressions, 18, 19. At 30, Dr. Patel would switch with Jennifer. Protocol for prolonged resuscitation. Josephine was sitting up on her gurney. The heart attack performance dropped. She was watching Clara, not Nathan, studying her. 6 minutes. Maxwell would never make it to the storage unit and back. 20 minutes minimum, if he found the right box immediately. "There's another way," Josephine said. Her voice carried despite the alarms. "But you won't like it." Clara turned. The woman who'd orchestrated 30 years of deception sat there in a hospital gown, looking fragile but eyes sharp as surgical steel. "Nathan has the compound in his system already. From the pregnancy. You were exposed when I was dosed 6 months before he was born. You said you were dead. I was dead. For 6 minutes. Planned cardiac arrest. They brought me back. But not before triggering the inheritance transfer." Josephine pulled down her gown collar, showing defibrillator burns. "The compound passes through breast milk, if you were still nursing." I stopped. Nathan couldn't latch properly after the surgery. "You stopped nursing. You didn't stop producing." Josephine looked at Clara's stained shirt. "You've been leaking all day." Clara's hand went to her chest. The wet spots, her body's stress response. "It's not enough concentration," Claire said, but she was already moving. "Unless..." She grabbed a suction catheter from a crash cart in the hall. Direct injection into the bloodstream. Concentrated dose. That could kill him faster, Dr. Patel said through the door. He's already dead. Margaret's voice was flat. 7 minutes now. Clara pulled up her shirt. No modesty left, not with Nathan dying 10 feet away. Claire positioned the catheter, drew directly from Clara's breast. The milk came out pink-tinged blood from cracked nipples she hadn't treated. How much? Claire asked. All of it. Claire drew 20 milliliters. Clara's left breast, then right. The catheter full of milk that might be medicine or might be nothing. 8 minutes. Brain death. Even if they brought him back now, Claire pushed through the NICU door. Move! Dr. Patel stepped aside. Claire found a vein, tiny, thread-like in Nathan's arm. The IV was already blown from multiple attempts. She went for the scalp, found a vein behind his ear, pushed the milk directly into his bloodstream. Nothing. 9 minutes. Again, Clara said. She was bleeding now, drops of blood from her nipples. Claire drew more. Blood and milk mixing. Second injection. Nathan's monitor flickered. Not a heartbeat. Electrical interference. No. Wait. A blip. Another. He's in VFib. Dr. Patel grabbed the paddles again. Better than a systole. Charging. Clara pressed against the glass, her blood on the window where her hands touched. Clear. Nathan's body jumped. The monitor showed chaos, then sinus rhythm. Weak, irregular. But there. Get him on bypass, Dr. Patel ordered. We're doing the surgery now. He's not stable enough. He won't survive another arrest. It's now or never. They wheeled Nathan toward the OR. Clara tried to follow, but her legs gave out. Garrett caught her. When had he recovered from the seizure? His shackles clanked as he held her up. The storage unit, he said. Maxwell's getting the vials. But you did it. The breast milk, it worked. Clara looked at him. This man who'd abandoned her, who'd chosen money over family, who'd held poison to their son's neck. Now holding her up with cuffed hands, vomit still on his clothes, tears cutting tracks through the dried blood on his face from where he'd bitten his tongue during the seizure. I'm sorry, he whispered. For everything. Clara pulled away. No forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The OR doors closed. The surgery would take 8 hours. Nathan might die on the table, or survive paralyzed, brain damaged, broken, but alive, for now. 1 year later, Christmas Eve, snow fell on Chicago again. Clara watched it through the window of a different apartment, Bridgeport, smaller than Humboldt Park but safer. The radiator clanged, fighting December's grip. Nathan's scar ran from his sternum to his navel, pink against his pale skin. 3 surgeries in 12 months. The Norwood procedure completed. He breathed on his own now, ate solid food, even laughed when Noah tickled him. The doorbell rang. Garrett stood in the hallway, snow in his hair. No shackles, he'd been released to house arrest after testifying against Victor's network. Ankle monitor visible under his jeans. 30 minutes, Clara said. Supervised. I know. He'd been coming every week for 6 months. Always exactly 30 minutes. Always with Margaret supervising. He worked at a warehouse during the day, studied for his GED at night. The arrogance was gone, burned away by whatever federal prison did to men who'd fallen from heights. Noah ran to him. Garrett, not Daddy. They'd agreed on first names. Safer that way. Garrett sat on the floor, eye level with the boys. He'd brought presents, not expensive ones. Wooden blocks from the dollar store, carefully sanded so no splinters. How's Nathan's breathing? He asked Clara. Better. Oxygen only at night now. They didn't talk beyond logistics. Weather, medical updates, schedule changes. Margaret knitted in the corner, watching. Her presence made it bearable. Nathan crawled to Garrett, pulled himself up using Garrett's knee. His balance was still affected. The oxygen deprivation had left traces. But he stood. "Gah," Nathan said, his version of Garrett. Garrett's face crumpled for a second, then recovered. He helped Nathan stack blocks, hands gentle. The timer on Clara's phone buzzed. 30 minutes. "Time," she said. Garrett stood immediately. No argument, no pleading for more time. He'd learned at the door. He turned. "Next week, Christmas Day. We'll be at Margaret's." "Okay, the week after then." He left. Clara watched through the window as he walked to the bus stop. No car license suspended. He waited in the snow, shoulders hunched against the wind. Noah pressed against her leg. "Why doesn't Garrett live here?" "Because families work differently sometimes." She didn't explain about trust, about betrayal, about choosing money over love. Someday she would. Not yet. 5 years later. The Josephine Harrison Foundation's annual gala was held in the same ballroom where Garrett had announced their divorce. Clara stood at the podium, looking out at 300 faces. Not Chicago's elite this time, mothers, children, families affected by medical bankruptcy. "The foundation has provided 800 surgeries this year," Clara read from her notes. Her hands didn't shake anymore. "Cardiac, neurological, oncological. No family turned away for inability to pay." Applause. She saw familiar faces, families she'd helped, children who'd survived because of the foundation's intervention. In the back. Garrett sat with the twins. They were 7 now. Nathan's speech therapy had worked. He spoke clearly, though slowly. Noah helped him with the words he struggled with. Garrett wore a suit not expensive, but clean, fitted. He worked as an addiction counselor now, specializing in executives who'd lost everything to ambition. He was good at it. He understood the fall. They weren't together, never would be, but they were something. Co-parents, occasionally friends, 2 people who'd survived the same war. Margaret sat beside them, 83 now, still knitting, still calling everyone lamb. Claire was there too, visiting from Switzerland. She ran the foundation's European branch. The real Clara who'd lived Clara's life in reverse, raised safe while Clara was bait. Victoria was still in prison. Would be for 20 more years. Victor had died 6 months ago. Heart attack, a real one. The FBI found plans in his cell for another attempt on the twins. He'd never stopped trying. Josephine, the real Josephine. Whoever she was had disappeared after Nathan's surgery. Left a note. "The ghost is tired. Let her rest." The inheritance transferred smoothly. The AI provisions mysteriously deleted. After the speech, Clara found herself outside. Same spot where her water had broken 7 years ago. The bloodstains were long gone, covered by new marble. Garrett appeared beside her, not touching, just present. "You did good in there," he said. "It's not about me. I know." He watched the snow fall. "I put money in the foundation account. Not much, $100. What I could spare." Clara looked at him. His face had aged 10 years in 5. Prison did that. Regret did that. "Every dollar helps," she said. Nathan ran out, Noah chasing him. They were playing some elaborate game involving superheroes and dinosaurs. "Mama, look," Nathan pointed at the snow. "It's like diamonds." He was right. The snow caught the light from the ballroom, glittering as it fell. "Garrett, watch this." Noah did a cartwheel, landed wrong, laughed anyway. They stood there, this strange family, not broken reformed, like a bone that heals stronger at the breakpoint. Margaret joined them, humming her Irish tune. Claire too, quiet, observing. "The boys' trust funds mature in 18 years, Clara said to no one in particular. "They'll each inherit $5 billion. They'll waste it on dinosaur toys," Noah announced. "And hospitals," Nathan added seriously. "For kids with bad hearts." Clara's milk hadn't leaked in years, but she felt that phantom sensation now, the body remembering trauma, remembering salvation. "Time to go home," she said. Home was a modest house in Oak Park now. 4 bedrooms. One for her. One for the boys. One for Margaret. One that stayed empty. Sometimes Garrett slept on the couch when the boys were sick, but that was rare. As they walked to their cars, plural, separate, always separate, Nathan slipped his hand into Clara's left hand, Noah into her right. "Mama," Nathan said, "is Garrett sad?" Clara looked back. Garrett was getting into his 10-year-old Honda. Alone. "Sometimes," she said. "Are you sad?" Clara considered. The scar from her emergency cesarean still ached in cold weather. She still counted heartbeats when stressed. Still dreamed about that night, water breaking on marble, crawling through snow. But the boys were alive. The foundation helped hundreds of families. Margaret finally had the daughter she'd been denied. The real Clara had found peace in Switzerland. "No," Clara said. "I'm not sad." And for the first time since that December night 7 years ago, it was true. Snow continued falling on Chicago, but inside their car, driving home, it was warm enough. The story I've just told you, Clara's story, lives in that space between what we fear and what we hope. I've known women like Clara, men like Garrett, not billionaire heirs or pharmaceutical criminals, but people who discover too late what actually matters. People who step over their partner's pain to reach for something shiny. People who learn that money is just paper when your child stops breathing. Every December when snow falls on Chicago, I think about marriages ending in public spaces, about blood on marble floors, about mothers dying with secrets that could have saved their daughters. These things happen. Different details. Same heartbreak. Clara's twins inherited billions. But what they really inherited was their mother's ability to survive abandonment, to produce medicine from her own body when science failed, to forgive without forgetting. That's the real trust fund learning that sometimes the only antidote to cruelty is refusing to become cruel yourself. Garrett serves his penance every day, not in prison anymore, but in the distance between him and his sons. 30-minute visits became hours, then overnights, but never home. Some breaks can't be mended, only managed. We tell ourselves these stories to practice for our own winters. Disclaimer. This is a work of fiction created solely for entertainment purposes. The story does not condone, promote, or encourage any form of violence, criminal activity, child endangerment, medical malpractice, or harmful behavior of any kind. All characters, events, medical procedures, and legal situations are products of imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. The portrayal of medical emergencies and treatments should not be considered medical advice. Always consult qualified professionals for medical, legal, or financial matters.